Hey, welcome. So, it's that time of year again. The air gets crisp, pumpkins are everywhere, and for a lot of Christians, this old familiar question pops up. You've got the kids excited, the stores are full of spooky stuff, and maybe there's just a little bit of unease. All right, let's get into it and try to untangle this whole thing.
Because, on the one hand, you've got the pure fun of it all, right? The costumes, hanging out with neighbors, and let's be real, the mountains of candy. But on the other hand, there are some pretty genuine spiritual concerns that people have about the holidays' themes and where it all came from. So, which is it? Is it all just harmless fun, or is there a real spiritual danger here?
And this really is the heart of the matter. How are you supposed to approach a holiday that you won't find anywhere in the Bible, but is just everywhere in our culture? That's the big question we're going to explore.
Yep, this question comes up like clockwork every single year. And while the Bible doesn't have a specific chapter called What to Do on Halloween, what it does give us are these amazing, timeless principles that can actually guide us in making a decision that feels right for our own faith and for our families.
Okay, so to really get to the bottom of this debate, we have to jump in the time machine and go way back. Because the history of Halloween is this wild mix of ancient Celtic stuff, Christian holy days, and of course, modern-day commercialism. And I'm willing to bet the real story is probably not what you think it is.
So here's the first surprise for a lot of people. The name Halloween itself has Christian roots. No joke. It's just a mashed-up shortened version of All Hallows Eve, which is the evening right before All Hallows Day, another name for All Saints' Day. That's a day the church set aside to honor saints and martyrs. And you can really see the journey the holiday took right here. It all starts with this ancient Celtic festival called Samhain, which was all about the end of the harvest. Then, fast forward to the 8th century, and the church strategically places All Saints' Day on November 1st, basically creating All Hallows Eve right on top of the old festival. A bit later in the Middle Ages, this tradition of souling pops up, which is basically the granddaddy of trick-or-treating. And then finally, in the 1800s, immigrants bring all these traditions over to America, and they start to morph into the Halloween we know today.
And this shows a really interesting pattern. The church didn't always just try to erase older customs. A lot of the time, it would absorb them and kind of Christianize them. So those ancient bonfires meant to ward off spirits, they became church vigils to honor saints. The offerings to old gods? They got transformed into souling, where people prayed for souls in exchange for treats. And those spooky carved turnips? Well, when they got to America, they became our iconic jack-o'-lanterns.
All right, so now that we have that history in our back pocket, let's dive into the biggest concerns that many Christians have about Halloween. It's time to separate the facts from the folklore. This is probably the big one, right? The number one concern you hear. Is this day inherently evil? Is it, the devil's holiday? Well, when we actually break it down, a much clearer picture comes into view. First off, the name and the date are directly tied to a Christian holy day. Second, those pre-Christian roots in Samhain, they were about seasons and spirits, not Satan worship. And today? Come on, let's be honest, Halloween is overwhelmingly secular and commercial. For sure, the most important thing is your intent, and for most families, they're just celebrating community and having fun with their kids, not trying to connect with dark forces.
Okay, but what about all the spooky stuff? The ghosts, the skeletons, the horror movies everywhere? I mean, if you participate, aren't you kind of glorifying darkness?
And that is a really fair point. The Bible is crystal clear that we should stay away from real occult practices, things like witchcraft or trying to communicate with the dead. But, and this is a huge but, there's a world of difference between genuine occult activity and fictional make-believe fun. A kid dressing up as Spider-Man is not practicing witchcraft. It's just not the same thing. You can absolutely choose to embrace the fun parts and just reject the gory or really dark elements. It's not an all-or-nothing deal.
This brings us to another really deep concern. This fear that even if your intentions are good, could carving a pumpkin or letting your kids trick-or-treat somehow open a door to negative spiritual forces in your life? And this is where faith, not fear, has to be our guide. The Bible reminds us over and over again that the power of God inside a believer is so much greater than any darkness out in the world. Seriously, walking in faith means you don't have to be afraid that a costume or a Snickers bar is going to give evil some kind of foothold. The focus should always be on a heart of faith, never a spirit of fear. So since the Bible doesn't just say, "Thou shalt not trick or treat," it gives us something way better. It gives us a kind of toolkit, a set of principles that help each of us make a wise, personal, God-honoring decision. So let's just walk through this toolkit. Step 1 is pretty clear.
Reject what is truly evil. Steer clear of anything that actually glorifies the demonic or the occult. From there, step 2, exercise wisdom. Just thoughtfully ask yourself, does this honor God? Then, step 3, focus on what's good. Dwell on things that are pure and lovely. That leads right into number 4, be a light. Use the day as the chance to show hospitality and Christ's love to your neighbors. And finally, number 5, and this is so important, respect personal conviction. Understand that other faithful Christians might make a different choice, and everyone has to answer to God according to their own conscience.
You know, this verse from Philippians is like the ultimate filter. You can run any Halloween activity through it. Costumes, movies, parties, whatever. Just ask yourself, is this true? Is this noble? Is this right? It's such a simple but incredibly powerful way to check your choices.
Okay, so what does all of this actually look like in the real world? With this toolkit in mind, how are Christians actually handling Halloween today? Let's look at some of the common, totally valid approaches people take.
Well, it leads to a whole spectrum of thoughtful choices. For some, the right answer is total abstinence. They skip it all together. And that's a perfectly fine conviction. A whole lot of people go to church-hosted events like harvest festivals or light parties. Then you have a huge group that participates, but with clear guidelines, focusing on fun costumes, not scary ones. And some even use the day to redeem the themes, making it a time to talk about how Jesus has victory over death and darkness.
So at the end of the day, the goal isn't to just blindly conform to the culture, and it's not to live in fear either. The goal is intentionality. It's about actually thinking through your choices and making a decision that lines up with your faith and brings glory to God, whatever that looks like for you.
And that really brings us to the final question. The question isn't, should Christians celebrate Halloween? A better question is, how will you be a light on October 31st? Maybe that means turning your porch light off and having a quiet night of prayer with your family. Or maybe it means turning your light on, giving out the best candy on the block, and showing radical hospitality to every single person who comes to your door. The choice is yours to make, with wisdom and with faith. Thanks for joining me.